I got a stack of wood fence panels from the neighborhood. Decided to make a barnwood accent wall. Here, taking the decorations off the wall, vacuuming some of the cobwebs that had built up. I am going to spray paint before putting the wood planks on. That's what I read online as a recommendation, so that the white doesn't show through the cracks, the spaces, because the barnwood's not perfect. In any event, here I am locating all the studs. I had a choice of either gluing the planks to the wall or nailing them. I went with nailing them because I felt that if we ever wanted to take it down, the wood would just pull the sheetrock off, and I'd end up having to replace the entire wall sheetrock, tape it, float it, texture it, and then repaint it. So here I'm marking after I've found the studs. These are on 16-inch centers. I used a small nail to punch a hole through the sheetrock so that I could find the stud locations after I paint. So I'm getting ready to tape up the walls. Apologize for the video. The angle wasn't that great. It's a master bedroom, but there really isn't a lot of space there. And also, this is my very first YouTube video. I'm not so familiar with it. I often, throughout this project, forgot about the video camera, forgot about turning it on, and in some places forgot about turning it off, so I ended up having to edit out a lot of dead space. So here I'm just getting ready to paint, taping up the wall, masking off the area. I've got one of those Wagner sprayers that I've used a couple of times, but it's actually a pretty good investment. It saves a lot of time rolling. As a matter of fact, the paint went on more quickly than it faster than it took for me to actually tape everything off here. The the masking, or the area, I was a little worried about it not being far enough away. The cover of the sheet not being far enough away to catch all the overspray, but it actually didn't produce a lot of overspray, so we were good there. So here I'm again getting ready to paint. Had the fan on, so I ended up having to turn the fan off because it was blowing the plastic around. It stayed in place pretty well. That piece of wood there, I didn't do a very good job of masking over it. I forgot to add another piece, similar to what I'm doing here, adding a piece and pulling it down. So I got a little bit of overspray, but I got to it quickly enough to where a wet rag wiped it off. So I'm puttying up or putting some caulk in the holes that were left by the items that were hanging there. And here I am painting, about a gallon of paint. Ended up using about half of it on this wall. But as you can see, the paint sprayer does pretty quick work of it. Ended up having to stop right about here, and refilling it ran out. So here I am back after filling it up a second time. I didn't actually use the full second amount that I poured in. So after I've painted it, took a break, let it dry, pulled off the mask area, and went ahead and pulled the chalk line, but it ended up not being straight. As you can see there, the blue line pulls away. So I'm starting to cut out the pieces, the end pieces. Since these are 16-inch on center, the studs, the majority of the cuts were on multiples of 16, so 32, 48, and 64. The end pieces ended up being not in a 16-inch multiple. So those had to be special cuts, but the other ones I could bang those out pretty quick. So in this shot is actually going back in time, showing you where I laid up that first row. This is about halfway through the wall. As you can see, I'm using a level to make sure it's level, and that blue line crept down a little bit as I went to nailed those up, that first row. So here I'm cleaning off some of the boards. My wife's sanding down some, getting the gray oxidation off to just break up the gray. It actually turned out pretty well. I thought about running them through a planer, but having them just barely sanded actually turned out better than having all fresh wood showing up on individual planks. So again, here I am cutting out the specialty cuts. I'm going to go all the way up on the left-hand side of the wall with all the specialty cuts, and then take the ones that were standard size or multiples of 16, put those up after that. So I only in a couple places did my joints line up from one row to the next. Those were just oversights on my part. I tried to keep the board staggered, give it that broken barn look. Here I'm cutting the pieces that are the standard sizes. I would do 4 at a time because again, they were all the same size, and it's easy just to stack them up, cut them. As you can also see, the fence was pretty muddy when I picked them up from the neighborhood. So here I'm just brushing off the dried mud and also some of the bigger chunks of wood that were left over after pulling them off of the 2x4s. So you can see there on the right, one of the areas where I had the joints lined up from one row to the next. You can't really see it after it's done, but I did that only a couple of places. I intentionally staggered them to avoid that. So those end pieces on the right were special cuts. Again, it's there's not an equal distance of multiple of 16 between where one board ends and the wall starts. So just the end pieces had to be cut special. The rest of it were pretty standard. Here, also the I don't know if it was the wall, the transition between the wall and the ceiling that was off, or if the line was or the boards were off. But on the left-hand side, there is a gap between. You can kind of see it between the wall and the ceiling, but with the dark color, it's hard to tell. So here I'm starting, finished the top section. Here I'm starting on the bottom section. And kind of run out of boards, so I've gone back to do my special cuts, get those up just like I did on the top section. I'm going to do this on the bottom. The outlets there you can see actually turned out pretty easy. It didn't actually it actually lined up pretty well. There's a single board goes between the board above the outlet and the outlet itself, and I was able to pull the outlets out, install the boards, and then just put the outlets back in on top of the board so that they're not recessed in. And then I, gave a pretty good finished look there when the faceplates are on. So all the boards went on. I had to do some rip cuts on the bottom row, um, and we'll see that in a second. In that last piece there, I had to take a utility knife and scrape off the edge to get it in there. So here's the very last row. I'll get that nailed in and then give you a view of what it looks like complete. Okay, finished product. Still need to get a little bit longer screws for the outlets, and then screw those in and then put the faceplates on. Next step, I'll vacuum the wall. Still a lot of dust on the walls from cutting, so I'll vacuum the walls and carpet, and that should be it. Thanks for watching. Here we are cleaning up after it's all done, and my wife's going to vacuum. There's a lot of dust from the tools and whatnot. And here's the finished product. Thanks again for watching.